about the properties. I've thrown in a few in here. The appraiser doesn't like some of them. But I also think it's important to know that there's a difference between market value and appraised value. So we have to look at things that the appraiser sometimes doesn't. So, you know, I've thrown in mother-in-law in the past. Solar panels is the one that the appraisers don't really like. Time adjustment is one that he agrees with, and updates. So basically, if there's an interesting feature about your property that's not in the MLS, then you can create them here. And you do that just by creating this blue button or clicking this blue button that says create custom factors. So you can say, I don't know, give me an example of something unique. A pool. I already had that one, but we'll do it anyway. Okay, we'll do second kitchen.
I call those wet bars if they don't have a oven.
So, okay, so we can create those, throw them in there. For the actual purpose of the one I'm doing, we're not going to use it, but you can create these, have them there, they'll save so you can come back and use them in the future. Okay, so, Emily? Yes, so you can create a template. So that what we just did with the create new is we're creating a whole template, and you can adjust them depending on the property and what factors apply. Yeah, and so like you'll see here, let's see, it was always there. No one ever used it because they used what was there. So now we're being forced to be a little bit more intentional. So I have a bunch in here. I named one Landon because he gave me adjustment factors. So anyway, I'll show you. Let's see, we save here. So we save this and it asks for a name. I'll say CMA class. Oh, and then you can, if you want this to be your default so that it pulls up every time like the previous one did, then you can click save as default factors. Did that part make sense? Did anyone have any questions on that? Okay, I'll pull that up again. So let's see, I did save. Oh, yep, right here, set as default adjustments. When I saved it, it also gave me a box. Do you see this? Yep. When you go to save it, you could have clicked it there. So now every time I pull in a CMA, it's automatically going to use this. And if I want to change it, I can. So that I don't have values put in. So that's what we're going to do now. Do you want to take over on this?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so what values do you put in for the adjustments? I want to talk just a quick little bit about how we determine, at least as an appraiser, how I come up with a dollar amount for bathrooms and square footage and all that kind of stuff. And what it's called is paired sales analysis. If you look over here, if you were to go and try to be an appraiser, this is class number 1. And in these classes, we look at 2 sold homes. And only ever in these classes can you find 2 sold homes where there was only one significant difference. So if you're looking at this slide, you see these homes are exactly the same, except for home A has 2-car garage and home B does not. Maybe you can full screen it or something. Go into present mode.
There we go.
Present. Okay, so you'd say, okay, there's a $10,000 difference in sales price. There was only one significant difference in their subject features. Therefore, a garage is worth, a 2-car is worth $10,000. So a 1-car is also worth $5,000. We have just extracted a contribution value of a garage bay for this area, okay? That is the basis for how appraisers come up with our adjustments. But in the real world, very few times do you only have one significant difference. When you start looking at condos and townhomes, then it's a little bit easier to isolate one factor and extract a value from it, okay? But when you're looking at single family homes that are built in different years, different acreage, different levels of condition, you can't necessarily do this as easily. But what you can do is you can still isolate one factor and do this analysis, right? And what you're going to get when you do that with multiple different factors that are changing is you start getting into what's called regression analysis, okay? Now, if you run lots of different comparables through that same type of paired sales analysis, you're going to get all these different data points. So I could have run that same analysis for 100 different homes, trying to isolate garage bays. And some of them could have been 5,000, some of them could have been 1,000, some of them could have been 20,000. But you'll get a general data point graph that looks somewhat like this. Does that track with everyone? Okay. You stick enough information in there, you're going to get some sort of trend. Okay. We've ran those trends. I've ran those trends. And so I'm here to tell you what generally numbers are going to spit out if you were to sit down and do all the math, right? I'm going to give you a little bit of a shortcut. And so this is where we're going to talk about basically what I would call the suggested general adjustments. If somebody asks me, hey, how much do you attribute to XYZ? This is kind of what I would tell them. And this is going to work, I think, generally for most homes. You start getting unique homes and unique features, maybe high-end areas or really not high-end areas, these adjustments could change. But for, I think, the general middle of the market home, this is what works. And at least it works in the reports that I'm doing now. And what's difficult about this is that these numbers were drastically different 6 years ago when I started appraising, and they're going to be drastically different. You know, they could be drastically different 6 months from now, depending on what the market does. So, GLA on an appraisal.
You probably need to explain what that is because we don't talk about it in the agent world.
Okay, so on an appraisal, you'll notice that we separate the square footage. We don't actually do total square footage adjustments. We don't base our values on a price per square foot at all. So we separate. GLA is gross living adjustments. So that's any gross living is any square footage that myself is anything that's above ground.
It's me. Sorry.
Okay, anything that's above ground. So first, second, third floors, right? Anything that's not a basement is considered GLA. And you'll see that on the appraisal report. We have the GLA square footage and adjustment.
I'm trying.
Then we have a basement square footage and a different adjustment.
She's got the meeting open.
Actually, it is not. I'll get to that in just a second. So everyone understand GLA, what that is? And okay, and then basements. If everyone had a choice to live in a basement or live above ground, who would choose the basement? One.
The guy
Okay.
who's wearing all black.
Okay. For
Like the
appraisals, we value basements as less valuable than above grade square footage, and I think that tracks because we try to put ourselves in the mind of a buyer. They're going to value more above grade square footage, so we value basements less. So GLA generally right now I'm between $40 and $60 per square foot. Yes. Does it count whether it's finished or unfinished? So I think in your CMA, if I'm not mistaken, you only have basement square footage. Do you have? Okay, good.
Finished. Yeah.
Okay, great. I should have kind of broke that out then. Yes, we value total square footage at one value and finished square footage for a basement at a separate value. So usually what I'm saying, when I say maybe a $30 per square foot for a basement, I'm saying I'll give $10 for just total square footage for differences, and then I'll do $20 for the difference in finished square footage. So if it's two fully finished basements, that's going to be $30 a square foot of differences. Another question? They can change neighborhood to neighborhood. They can change street to street, like houses on the same street, depending on how unique they get. So this is why this is a really hard thing for appraisers to say this is what I do, because this is a constantly moving target for every house that I'm appraising.
Do you think
But
you could kind of explain when we talk about each one, so like GLA, like what makes you use $40 per square foot versus 60? Because if we could go through, so what we did here as far as adjustments, we obviously on the one that we just started setting up the template, there's like 10 factors. We wanted to focus on like the top 5 that are going to impact the value the most. And those are the ones that I wanted him to speak to as far as values. So maybe we could go through each of those top 5. I think we ended up with 6 but still the top 6, and talk about why, when, and how you would reason through using the lower range versus the higher range.
Sure. Yeah. So when I might use a lower range could be homes that are only 800 square feet, right? If
Or would it be the opposite?
right.
Yeah. If it's like a condo with no land.
It also has somewhat to do with maybe the niceness of the home. You know, a luxury home I might value at $75 a square foot versus maybe your run-of-the-mill Rambler in West Jordan might be more like $40 or $50 a square foot. So it has a little bit to do with it with the condition of the home, maybe the area, and then also large homes that are, let's say, 5, 6, 7,000 square feet. I need to start making larger dollar adjustments to actually impact the adjustments in a significant way. If I'm a 7,000 square foot home and the comp is, 8,000 square feet, that's 1,000 square feet. If I only give it a $20 per square foot adjustment, percentage wise, I didn't move the needle at all, right? So I need to make my adjustments larger so I can actually move the needle in a significant manner to have adjustments that actually, proportionally to maybe how big the house is as well.
I've sat in a lot of the meetings with the MLS as to why they removed the adjustment factors. And so good job coming here and trying to figure it out. But what you just said, Landon, is the reason they removed the adjustment factors, is because people were making too many assumptions that those were uniformly applied across the board.
Yeah, so I guess an asterisk to all of this is it doesn't apply uniformly across the board. This is, I think, what I would say, like I said, it's kind of maybe could be a good portion of it, but they could vary widely. So this is a very difficult question to answer, at least from an appraisal standpoint.
Which is kind of why we wanted to start with, like, how do we get to this point, like the analysis that he's running, give you the background. I know that's like way more than us as agents are really going to be able to digest and keep, but if we can kind of have a general understanding as to how these factor adjustment values are being derived, then we can hopefully, I think, and with experience, I think we kind of start to figure it out.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we covered GLA. Basements, again, I would, if it's $30 a square foot you go with, I'd probably say 10 for total square footage, 20 for finished. Acreage, and like she said, so these are the big ones on an appraisal that are going to move the needle on the adjustments
and
the most.
Let me show you, if it's not clear, I want to show you how we're entering this into the MLS. So I'm going to switch over to here. Okay, so for example, acreage, it's not going to make much of a difference here. But if I had a 1 here, then, wait, is that right? It's
43560.
Oh, that's right. Because remember this in real estate class, guys? 4356. Yeah, what was
43560.
43560?
So that would be $1 a square foot for acreage adjustments.
Yeah, which means we have to math again. We don't like math, do we? What did we decide it was for $2 a square foot?
Well, you can leave it at 1. That's fine.
Okay, so this would be equivalent to $1 per square foot because there's that many feet in an acre.
Yep.
Does that make sense? Then you would have to do that
1.5.
times 1.5. Yeah, and if you want to do $2 per square feet, then you'd do that times 2. But I need to go back to our template. This is where we would actually enter these values if we want them to stay. So the GLA that Landon, that one doesn't give me a value. Oh, because it wants me to do square foot total, or here it is. Where's the total square feet? Here it is. Total versus basement. So our total square foot per dollar. Wait, that's percent. Okay, here it is. What did you say you would do for?
If there's a house that has an unfinished yard compared to one that has like a nice high-end finished yard, do you adjust for that?
He's asking if I make adjustments for landscaping, and I do. How to value landscaping is a whole other thing. But yeah, sometimes I run into completely unlandscaped backyards in new construction versus maybe a secondary sold home that has a yard in. I'll make an adjustment for that. And then sometimes if you're in an area where all the backyards are professionally manicured and landscaped versus one that's not, I might start making adjustments for that too. Yeah, sure. But like I said, I feel like acreage, GLA, basement, condition, and your time adjustments are going to be the ones that are going to move the biggest, like have the biggest impact on your values. That's a good question. Let's keep going with
Let's get to that in 1 second. I want to catch up
Okay.
here. I just switched over to what it used to be. I was trying to start from scratch, but I think that was taking too much time. So I'm using this is really this emulates what used to be in the MLS, what the set ones were. I made some small tweaks based on Landon's recommendations a couple years ago. So we're gonna now actually do it so that you can see, and then we can go into more detail. But the MLS previously gave $1,000 for each bedroom, which Landon can explain. Do you want to do that now, actually?
Sure. Usually I don't make bedroom adjustments. Usually I make square footage adjustments, and how the homeowner determines or decides they want to split that square footage up kind of comes down to a personal choice, especially in basements. If you want a theater and a game room versus 4 bedrooms, I don't think that, in my opinion, and this is all my opinion, I don't think that makes your house less valuable than having multiple bedrooms. It's how you determine to use the square footage. So in my mind, making a size adjustment for area and a bedroom adjustment is somewhat making an adjustment twice. So usually, again, sometimes this changes in condos and townhomes, but in single family homes, usually I'm not accounting for a bedroom count. I'm just accounting for your size, above grade and below grade. Does that make sense? Would that be a universal thing with a lot of appraisers? It is between the appraisers I know, which is about 2 other appraisers. Appraisers are somewhat lone wolves, and we don't have big meetings like this where we get together and talk about how we're doing adjustments. But generally, I feel like that's a hot topic debate amongst appraisers, and I come down on the side of not making them. How would that change for townhomes if I'm making a bedroom adjustment? It would make when there's only a slight difference in size, but there's a 2-bedroom versus a 1-bedroom, there's a huge difference in price, and my square footage adjustment doesn't account for all of it, and the condition is the same, then the only other thing that's different is the bedroom count. And then I try to do the paired sales analysis where I look at, okay, these houses were $10,000 difference. My size adjustment only brought it down $1,000 or $2,000. Maybe I need to make a $2,000 to $3,000 adjustment for an additional bedroom, and I'm going to extract that based on the sales I'm looking at. Yeah.
Okay, so I got rid of the what did I get rid of?
You just got rid of
bedroom
bedrooms.
count. So now we've got full bathrooms, and you had put on the other screen. How
Yes.
much?
So full bathrooms right now, I would put between $5,000 and $10,000. $10,000 probably for really nice bathrooms, maybe $5,000 for maybe your run-of-the-mill bathrooms, maybe $7,500 for something in the middle. And we value, at least as appraisers, we value full and 3/4 baths exactly the same. If you have something to shower in, you're valued the same, no matter if it's a stand-up shower or a tub. And then half baths, we usually value half of a full bath. So $5,000,
Question over here.
$5,000 for a full bath, $2,500 for a half bath.
I can try. Oh, wait, that was this right here, right? We probably got to hurry up a little bit. Okay, so I'm kind of just running along here, putting these values in. So you're saying half, which I'm just going to call that 4250. No, is that right?
32.
No, 3750. I think it's 3750.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. Okay. And then this has level 1, 2, 3, and 4 square footage. A few years ago, I was in like the $30 to $40 range. That's what these are from. I would value anything above grade. I'd probably start at 50.
I don't know very many 4-level homes, but
We're running into them with those townhomes that keep getting
but
higher.
not 4.
That's
an
true.
extreme. So if we wanted to get rid of this one, you're probably never going to use it. So
There's some fourplexes in Riverton that go up 4 levels.
So detached garage with living space above the garage or something like that. And agents always put that in a level 4.
Don't
Like-
do that. It's not living area.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask, is how does an appraiser?
Yeah.
do
So
that?
if you have
So Tyler was just, oh, did you already do it?
he was speaking to the
Oh.
microphone. So Tyler's asking about if I've got a detached garage with a mother-in-law apartment above it. It shouldn't technically be listed as the same as like a second floor of the house, because it's not technically. Oh man, this is worst appraiser's worst nightmares when we run into these things. It's not technically living area as your home is. It's a detached secondary finished space that we have to value separately than a GLA or a basement square footage. And how do you value those? That's a great question for maybe another. No, actually,
I was gonna say, we only have about 9 minutes.
I would value it more than a basement, and I would value it less than your living area that's in your home. And I would probably still attribute $5,000 for a bathroom, and probably another $5,000 to $7,500 if it has a kitchen in it. No, if it's attached to the house and like you access it from within the house and it's above the garage, that's just second floor. He's talking about like a detached structure, or someone's got like a shed in the back that they've made into living area. That's a whole other animal to try to value. Okay, so anything above grade 50, below grade, I would do 10 and 20 like she's got here. 10 for total, 20 for finished. Another question?
How are you?
When you're working high rise and you go up levels and
Yes.
the views change,
Yes.
and sometimes I'm seeing that the bigger units are actually selling much less on price per square foot. How are you making adjustments for that?
So you're in a very specific scenario like that, I would go back and point at the paired sales analysis and the regression analysis. I'd have to look at a big data set of sales in that building specifically, especially high rises in Salt Lake, or a similarly located high rise, and look at how the floors, if I try to find similarly sized condos and the only difference is the floor, to determine how much of an adjustment the higher you are in a condo. So that's, I can't just say a dollar for that, a dollar amount for that, because the high rises around there differ so much. So I would point back, that's when you have to go back and do the work of the paired sales analysis and some regression analysis, because that's one of like the outside of the general scope of what we're going to run into in a generic single family home in the valley.
Okay, I'm gonna try to get through this template real quick before we answer more specific questions. So I'm gonna kick out total square feet, because again, we've already accounted for it in more specific terms. So I'm kicking that out. This one doesn't even have factors in it, so I'm actually kicking those out too. Year built wasn't one of the top factors, so it's probably not gonna make a huge difference.
I'm usually between $500 to $1,000 per year, and then I usually start making adjustments at around 5-year differences. So if
We don't
my
have
house
the
is
ability to do
built,
that here.
oh, okay, well then
So
just
we
make
have
that
to- it's
adjustment
pretty
for all
small,
that.
so I don't think it makes a
Yeah.
big difference. But we're gonna, it's a smaller factor. You know, if it's you're a five years, then you're looking at $2,500. So it's not gonna greatly affect your adjustments. Garages is a big one, so let's talk on that one.
Okay, garages, we kind of touched on a little bit. I found that initial house A, house B just on the internet, and it came out to $5,000 per bay, which is about what I do here. So $5,000 to $10,000 per bay for a garage. And again, that's gonna vary where you are. The way garages are valued downtown Salt Lake, when you're in like Sugar House and you've got a detached 2-car garage behind your 1930s bungalow, people pay a lot more for that than not having, you know, a covered parking spot, versus maybe a garage in Taylorsville, West Jordan, West Valley, or something like that. You may not get as much of a bump for an additional garage bay. So it's going to vary. $5,000 to $10,000.
Carport.
Carport, I usually do half. If you're doing $5,000 for a garage, do $2,500 per carport bay. So a 2-car carport could be worth the same as a 1-car garage.
And then we already did acres here.
Acres 1 to 2. I'd probably start at 150 up to 250 a square foot for acreage.
So you may want to do the math on this one. This times 1.5 and add that as your factor that you have saved in. And then you can always add these in. So if our property had any of these things, we could throw these in. Yes. Oh, sure.
65, 340 for $1.50 per square foot.
65, 340 is $1.5 a square foot for acreage.
Okay.
Mother-in-law, that's just talking about like a second kitchen in the basement. Usually I'm valuing those at $5,000 to $10,000 for a kitchen in the basement or a second kitchen somewhere in the house. And that's contributory value, not necessarily cost, because it probably costs you more to put that in, but contributory value for what it might bump you on your value or your sales price is probably more in the $500 to $7,500 to $10,000 range.
I have 5,000.
5,000
I
for
feel
a
like I need to put 10, but of
put
course
10.
it's going to depend on the property. So again, we're kind of giving ranges for now, and maybe you create a template that has the low range, and then you create a template that has the high range. And then when you're looking at a specific property, you're going to go through and you're going to change it kind of using the background information that Landon's been giving us. Yes, over here. Mother-in-law apartment, second kitchen. These are without the basement entrance, like the separate entrance to its own entity, which you factor that.
Okay, so the question is a secondary kitchen in the basement with its own entrance, like a true mother-in-law or an a legal accessory dwelling unit. That changes because then I have to value it against other legal ADUs. And then I'm going to point back to the regression and the paired sales analysis. But those are the exception. Usually what you're going to run into is someone that just has a basement, a kitchen in the basement, but it's still accessible from the main floor. It's not its own ADU. It's not separately metered, things like that. So a legal ADU is also a whole other animal. Does it have to be separately metered to counter? Yeah, what you're asking is how to make it a legal ADU, and again, is a whole other thing. But generally, if there's it does vary widely. And so basically, generally, if it's got a second kitchen, I'd say $5,000 to $10,000.
Okay, so these last couple ones, I think we were like really right at time. So I'm going to try to be quick about this. I throw in for condition, like again, I'm kind of throwing a dart around, like kind of like, that one's way nicer. I think it's worth about this much. Sort of doing what Landon's doing, but just in my head. I throw a factor in there, and then when I'm actually, well, I'll have to flip to the other screen and show you how I'm comparing it. But like, for example, here I've got 10,000. If I'm looking at something and I'm like, that house is like 50,000 better, then I'm going to put a 5 so that it multiplies it by 10 in the comparable spaces, which I'll have to show you when we get to it. And we have to do that really fast. And then someone did ask about time adjustments, and I do want to spend time on that in just a second. I do the same thing where I throw a number in here, and maybe that number is like generally houses around $500,000. So I'm going to be really like just general and say
5,000. 5,000 for 1%.
It's 5,000 is the factor that I want to have saved into my values. Save as. I'm just going to call this one example template save. So I'm going to go back to my report. I'm on my examples. And when I'm looking at, now I have all the values that we had just determined that are in here. And this, again, this blue one is my property. And then the gray ones are all of the comparable properties. And let's say we're looking at this property and it's like, it's not very nice. It's like, it's $50,000, not as nice as my house. And I have determined that, so this is a 10,000. So I'm a 5 and they're a 0. And that's going to adjust. Wait, did I do that backwards? Maybe I needed to make this a negative. So you can make that a negative in there. No, I did it right the first time.
And you gave up. Okay.
Okay, so that gave me a positive adjustment. Did I do that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
You do negative on the left column, go down to positive on the column.
Right. Yeah, I have to always think about that one. But then, so time, which I'll have Landon explain, I kind of do the same. Well, actually, you explain it and then I'll show.
Okay, so time adjustments recently have been crazy, where we've been appreciating at like 24 to 30% per year, which comes out to around 2% per month. That's like the brakes have been completely halted on that recently in the last month. And appraisers, we report the past, so we're about a month or two out from really seeing that on appraisals. Anyways, but generally I'd say 1 to 2%. Right now I'd probably say 1% per month, maybe, if you even want to give a time adjustment. and I would start making that adjustment after there's a difference of more than 3 months. So if it's older than 60 to 90 days, like if the contract was written 60 to 90 days ago, more than 60 to 90 days, I'd probably start making a 1% adjustment per month.
So as an example,
So
this
that would be
one was-
$15,000 for a,
Yeah, this one was 3 months ago that it sold, and we're in we're in sort of the close to the $500,000 range, which is why I gave 5,000 as our factor. So I'm gonna say 3 months, which I already did, and it calculates 3 months times the 5,000 per month gives me a $15,000 adjustment.
does that make sense? Jinx.
That's a good point.
This is a market value. Like, this is a time where the market value is actually probably less than the appraisal value because the market has shifted, but you're not adjusting for that yet. You're saying you're still giving that 1% a month appreciation.
I think you said that backwards though. The market value is more than.
Well, no, I think she's right,
Did you
because
say it right?
if
I mean,
if
depends.
values take a little bit of a dip, then yeah, I might have a really easy time appraising
'Cause
for
you're
contracts
still
right now because I'm
saying-
showing I may show a comp 3 months ago that sold for $20,000 to $30,000 more than what you're under contract for, whereas 6 months ago is the opposite, right?
Right.
So yeah, it could be different where I could actually on paper appraise you for way more than you can get someone under contract for.
Yeah.
And again, 6 months ago, I couldn't appraise you anywhere near where you could get someone under
Right.
contract for. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely shifting.
So it's about 3 months from now that could start to change.
Yeah, 2 to 3 months.
again.
Like I'm always working on past data. So as we see if there is a little correction or a dip in prices, then we'll start seeing that. And
Right now
that's
you're
why we
still-
try to use the most recent sales possible to give you the most recent snapshot in time.
So you're an appreciating market for right now.
Maybe, maybe not. Like I'm not blind
Okay.
to it, even though,
Yeah.
I see that things sold 3 months ago for more. I might still look at what sold in the last 30 days and just
Yeah.
base my values off of
Okay.
that and not make any comparisons.
Okay.
Yes.
I read, and I can't remember the source, that some appraisers, because of this difference, are looking at things under contract where they normally wouldn't have looked at those things, but because of this market shift right now, they're factoring in things under contract so that it's not that big of a gap between the two. Is that your experience?
That's a great question. So on an appraisal, I can only place weight, or I can only value a home based on sold comparables. I can look at what's under contract, I can look at what's listed, but I can't base my valuations on that, and that's a mandate from much higher than, that's mandated from the lenders and the lender mortgage conglomerator. So I can look and see what's listed and what's under contract, but I can't say your house is only worth this because your listings say you're worth this. I have to base it on sold comparables.
And that's where, from my perspective, like people push back when I try to say that market value and appraised value are not the same. People have a big problem when I say that. But I think the sooner and the more that we embrace that, the better that we can serve our clients, because we need to see what's happening in the market, what buyers are doing now, because we're predicting the future when we're helping someone buy and get a house under contract, whether they're the buyer or the seller. The appraiser is bound by certain rules and guidelines and things that he has to follow. So we need to know what that gap is, kind of like Annie was just pointing out. We need to know like where the appraiser is and where we are so that we can foresee the issues that we're going to need to solve in the transaction. Sorry, I think you were going to say something before that.
I think I said it all.
Okay.
Question?
I don't know if you want to tackle this, but this is the question on Zoom. Mobile homes help.
Oh, geez.
Another
Oh,
one.
geez.
Another one of those.
Does it actually come with the land? Because if it's not, then it's like more like a car purchase. If you're valuing a mobile home that it comes with the land, you got to look around for other mobile homes that have sold on the MLS that came with the land. And I would point you back to regression and paired sales analysis for adjustments. Yeah, that one's tough. I usually don't take mobile homes. Time adjustments, again,
You're
1 to
trying
2%
do,
per month.
1% per month. I put 5,000 as just like a very vague number since the average price of a house is 5,000, but you might change it. So if you're dealing with an 800, a 5,000. So, because you're doing like per month, so it's not an exact math, but we're limited on our tools here. So if we're
In
doing
my
it-
tools, I can do percent per
You can do
month
it very
and say
specific.
only if it's more than a 6-month difference, and it spits it out in my appraisal report. It
so
makes
if
it a
we're
lot easier
looking
for me.
at an $800,000 house, then I'm gonna say, you know, an $8,000 a month adjustment, and then when I put in the number of months, it's not perfect, but it's close. Well, I mean, if it's a specific property that we don't have very many comps on and I have to go a year ago, I'm definitely going to use a time adjustment. You know, not that we want to go out that far. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're using super
Exactly.
recent comps in the last 2 to 3 months, I'd say you might not need a time adjustment right now. Another question over here?
Can you explain the condition again?
Oh, yeah.
Can I talk about that?
Oh, yeah, please.
Okay, so condition adjustment, something that's super updated versus something that's not. I feel like in my experience, Kenny and I are also investors and have rehabbed houses and have flipped houses. And so I'm pulling a little bit from, I might start with what I think it might cost to rehab a kitchen to that level versus what I've got in my subject. And then I quickly back off from cost though. So generally, if it's a nice kitchen versus an average kitchen, I might say, okay, I'm going to give you maybe 10 grand. I know that if you were to actually rip your kitchen out and try to mimic the one that's there, you're probably more like 20 grand. But again, that contribution value is going to be less than cost. Same with bathrooms. So I say, if I've got a really nice kitchen and 2 really nice bathrooms versus basic kitchen, basic bathroom, I might say, okay, 10 grand for the kitchen, 5 grand for each of the bathrooms. I'm going to give my house I'm going to give this comp a negative $20,000 adjustment because it's got a nicer kitchen and 2 nicer bathrooms. Kind of that. I look at each kind of fixture, kitchens, bathrooms, floorings, paint, that kind of thing. And I start generalizing what I think could be cost, and I slide back from there on. Again, this is going to experience with regression and paired sales analysis that I can kind of off the top of my head, I know what has worked in the past when I run iterations and all my comps adjusted values end up in the same area. So that's kind of where I'm at when I do that. So it's kind of hard to say a general condition adjustment, but
the technicality of how I'm doing it in here is the same as the time adjustment. I kind of just created my own factor of like, okay, $10,000 is a general factor. And then when I'm looking at each comp, I could be like, oh, this one's like $20,000 more. I'm going to give it a 2. So that's 2 times 10. Or this one's the same, so I'm not going to give it an adjustment. That's how I'm doing that mechanically in here. And again, the appraisers have better tools. We have this very basic. Oh, this is perfect for us. It is basic. I think we need to keep it basic because we could analyze the heck out of every single factor that exists. Like what we kind of have been doing. Like, well, what if it has I don't know, all the random. What if it has solar panels? What if it has this? What if it has that? And if they are big things, then maybe we consider it. But I think some of these detailed things, we're getting in the weeds too much. But the market's really tell us what the value is. We're doing our best to price right for marketing purposes.
I know we just talked that market value and appraised value are different, but what is your opinion on a pre-listing appraisal?
what is my opinion? I'm always happy to do them.
Do you
And-
suggest that we do?
I mean, I do them for all of her listings, and I feel like they're beneficial. So I would say, yeah, if you
Can
want,
I speak to that one?
sure.
I think it's really good for you to be informed. I wouldn't exactly use it for your pricing because again, for your pricing, you want to be looking at the market condition, what's going on in the market and what buyers are willing to pay. That's what we tuned into. And then know in the back of our mind, oh, we might have an appraisal issue based on what the market's willing to do and what an appraiser is required to do. So that's why I find it valuable. It's also free for me, so it makes it a lot easier.
That's my next question is, would you suggest a seller pay for that?
I don't know because I get offered that as a value add.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that's kind of up to you as far as like, is it worth it for you? I don't know.
You're generally going to get charged $400 to $500 for an appraisal for me just to come out and give you an appraisal.
But he can do a desktop.
I can also do a desktop, right, which is going to be less, where I can just sit down and say, okay, if I were to pull comps, I'm just looking at what I can see. These are the comps I'd use. This is about the value I'd come to. I can do that easy for
that
people all the
I
time.
would recommend way over asking you or the seller to fork out $500 for it. And honestly,
I
that's
still
really
charge
what,
for that, but not $500.
that's really what he does for me for the most part. And I can kind of give him the insight of here's what's in the house.
Okay.
The question is it better for me or an appraiser to do a desktop after you have photos taken? I would say if it's significantly different than the photos I can already find, then yeah. If it's not significantly different from the last listing, then I could do it at any point in time. Solar panels. Oh, geez. Yes, if it's paid off, I'm going to make an adjustment depending on the lender. Some lenders will not allow me to make adjustments for solar panels because technically you could take them off your roof and move with them. So some lenders view them strictly as personal property. Some lenders will let it slide. The adjustments I'm making right now, solar is so hard because all that I know about the comps is a checkbox that says yes, it has solar or no, it does not. They could be solar panels from the 80s. They could have one solar panel on a garage. I have no idea what the kilowatt output is and how long they've had it and the degradation of this. It is such a hard. So generally, if you have solar panels that are paid off and I can find another house that also has solar panels that's similar, I might start making a $5,000 to $10,000 adjustment, and that's about it. Definitely not $40,000 to $80,000 to $100,000.
Yeah, my
But don't
house.
let the solar
yeah.
sales guys
Don't let them tell you that you can refinance for $100,000 more and pull your money out. It won't happen.
No, my house has solar, and when we had it appraised, they gave a 5,000 adjustment for it is all.
That might have been me. That sounds reasonable.
Yeah,
That
no,
guy
it
knew.
wasn't
That
you.
guy knew what he was doing.
But I had a question for Kenya because I know you had posted something about pricing 5% under what you thought an appraisal would be, or is what I thought you had said. Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, I tend to be really conservative when it comes to pricing, even in a good market. I try to keep it, I look at what I think is the appraised value based on his guidance, and I usually go just under it. So it's usually right around 5,000. I mean, or so I guess that could be more 5%.
Yeah.
But I basically would round down and kind of stick it there. Because again, the market's going to tell us what it really is, and I don't want to overprice. That's the last thing I want to do, and especially in this market, it's the last thing I do is overprice.
For example, this townhome that she's got here, I looked at it and thought I could appraise it for 460, 465 pretty easily,
Yeah, and I priced it at 455.
and she's at 455.
And have you gotten a lot of action on it, or?
Nope.
Nope.
So if you guys
And there are
in Eagle Mountain
comps.
looking for a townhome, send them my way.
There are comps in the 470s, if I remember right.
475. There are some higher comps. So it's been
So the
really
upper end of
quiet.
the appraised value could also be even pushed up from that.
Yeah. Oh, and one thing I would add that kind of has to do with this, I know we're way over time. Square footage is very inaccurate. My last two listings.
She's saying square footage on county
yes,
tax
that's what it
records
is.
is highly inaccurate. Yes, that is
So
true.
don't rely on the previous MLS listing. Don't rely on square footage. Probably call an appraiser. I'm sorry if I keep you way too busy with these things because they're not really high yield. I send Landon out to all of my listings, and the last two were a couple hundred square feet more than what county or the previous MLS had said, and that's the difference of like $10,000. I almost listed this condo at $445 because of what county said. And then when I came back with the real square, he came back with the real square footage. I was like, oh my gosh, this isn't as small as all these other ones. It's actually bigger.
A sketch is usually $100 to $200. Yeah, $100 to $200
Yeah.
for a sketch,
So
depending on how far I have to drive and how big the house is.
yeah,
Yeah, because you'll get a sketch with
Yeah,
a full
that's a good
pre-listing
point.
appraisal.
yeah. So that kind of goes back to the question: is it worth it? Maybe if the square footage is off, sure, it's worth $500. Difference of $10,000.
And it's our job, I feel, to market the property accordingly.
Yeah.
So, if they get an appraiser done, and the square footage is off, but it's more or less.
Yes. There's a little liability, so we have to be careful too. So I have him sketch it, and I attach the sketch to the MLS listing and say this is where we got the square footage from. Or that's another great way.
If the sellers had a recent appraisal on a refinance, you should have a sketch somewhere. Yeah. And that's going to be pretty accurate. I use a laser, so my sketches are laser accurate.
Okay, we've gone really over, but we're also willing to kind of hang out a little bit, and I'm willing to tie him down and make him answer all the questions you guys have. So
Sometimes appraisers are the pain in the butt. I don't know what you're talking about. He asked for
Maybe
my
you can write it on the
contact
board,
information. Yeah,
if
I
you're
can
willing.
write it. Kenya
You're
can write it up here.
always
She's got good
welcome to reach out to
penmanship.
me too if you track London down.
So you guys did say that you're willing to stick around a little bit more.
Yeah.
I'm always willing to answer questions. I feel
You
like
could, if you want to keep
yeah.
Zoom on so that people
Yeah.
can answer.
So we'll leave Zoom on if you guys want to stick around and ask questions. But they did spend even some extra time right now. Let's give them some love and appreciation for their time.
Thank you.
And this was brought up from Amy that this was probably more like intermediate/advanced CMA course compared to others. And if you guys need some of the entry level, like how do we get to this point? There are classes at the board that they do for free, and we occasionally have those here as well in the office. So if you guys are needing any of that, just to get some of the really basics of a CMA, we can help with that as well. But this is just gold, yeah, stuff that we need for this market. So thank you very much. Let's grab some food, and if you guys want to ask questions, then they'll stick around as well. Maybe just kind of scoot a little bit towards the front and use a mic so the Zoomers can hear us as well. One more round of applause and let's go eat.
Guys. Oh yes. And I can. Did you get a screenshot of the one that he had typed up, like the adjustment values? I'll move to the next. You can do. Did you already get this? That's all of it. That is the top. But then I'll switch it over. Landon, will you go over to your adjustments? Yes, I'm so glad you came. It's kind of fun.
I'd love
Yeah.
to chat with you more.
Yeah, absolutely. How long have you been an agent?
3 years.
Have you met Terry?
No, I wanted to meet
And Terry, this is our team leader. Okay, so we're pretty similar. I'm about to hit 4 years, so.
I'm coming up on 2 years full time.
Okay,
So-
cool.
But my first year, I didn't really do anything.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome.
And who are you with?
I'm with Century 21. Oh, yeah.
Oh, right, you're with Everest. That's who we did the competition with,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Oh, what was that?
The Thanksgiving Heroes.
To raise money
Oh, that's
for.
so cool. That's so much fun. I like it there. I just moved over there a couple months ago.
From where?
From Berkshire Elite.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
So it's been pretty good.
Where do you live in the valley?
I live in Murray. Yeah, so I'm like right there. I'm like 5 minutes away from my office.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
We'll have to chat. Yeah.
Yes.
I'll probably reach out to you because I have one I'm trying to price out right now. So.
Yeah. Do you have? Well, you've got my Facebook information. Okay.
Yeah. But this is awesome. Like,
Yeah.
so helpful. They took
I'm sorry. I felt like it was a little bit of a rough start because I was just ready to jump in. I'm like, oh shoot, people don't even know how to pull this up.
No, and then I realized that too. I was like, oh, dear, this is
Like, I really just wanted to like jump into the meat and potatoes, but we got a little bit stuck there for a minute.
This is going to be great because now I can just make my own templates. And
Yes.
Practice and before I was just using another.
What was
and
there?
Making my own adjustments manually, like
Mhm.
literally on paper, like. Hey,
Oh, good.
So that was just.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you could come. Grab some food. Like, seriously, grab some food. So feel free to stay and. Okay. Yeah. You're always welcome.
Yeah, I just want to come introduce myself. Thanks. They have some card. I don't, but I will now. I do have a card.
I guess there's a question about
Yeah. You can pass the test.
Yeah, what you just told me, if it's in the area, they're both new homes, similar size or are they way different?
The one I want is actually bigger. It has 3 stories. The other one is my own purchase.
3 stories like.
Oh, nice.
A main and a second? You mean 3 stories like it has a basement, a main floor, and a second floor?
Yes, one of
And
them.
the other house only has a basement and a main floor?
Yeah.
So my, is that here I did that class?
It was at Brock's.
I did a class on basement electrical. And there are certain like silos or bubbles I see. You're a 2-story house, I would say you're 2-story. And I only compare you to 2-story. Unless I have to break that bubble and go elsewhere. But if there are other 2-stories, those are more competitive than others. Even if they're both new, even if they're both functionally similar, I'm still going to try to stick 2-story to 2-story, Rambler to Rambler, townhome to townhome. In that scenario, I would say actually no, it probably isn't value very much. If there are other 2-stories in the area that are more similar, I probably would use
mile. Your card right now is a mile. So you're either have to open your radius or go up.
Yeah, so that's the question I hope that's all the time. If I can't find things I need to find, do I go for the
We will have a big dinner tonight, though, in New York.
similar neighborhoods, especially like usually if you go east to west, they start to get significantly different, but if you stay north to south.
I was just saying, I'll take you guys to lunch if you guys want.
Yeah, let's do it.
I know you were like, I haven't really got a meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I know next week's holiday. And, okay.
Yeah, we just had a family reunion and I have like 20 people at my house. So I'm like, so unfocused.
Really?
It's been so much, like since Thursday. Oh, I didn't realize I'm still like talking to all the Zoom people. Since Thursday when we had the client event, I've just been hosting about 40